Welcome to United Commons. Today, Mercenary Companies. We will only be going into light detail of Stahlfakt, even though that is your starting company you'll be working with, as I'll be making a dedicated further details, well, text and subsequent video recording for your rock at a later point. We'll additionally also go over some for major contacts you should already be aware of, as they have to do both with the other mercenary lands companies as well as the starting conflict zone you'll be dealing with, all centered around Karkatos and its system, as well as Samid, Hiss, and that whole shebang with LAPD. So let's get right into it with Raubritter Corps, who were once a manu with Raubwerk, but the stalemate on Sami silver manufacturer increasing layoffs, and Luca Kreidekrieger Schreiner advised his lands to jump ship before we were next on the chopping block. It is unclear whether it was fabrication, or if Raubwerk was genuinely in breach of contract with the Manu lands. But at least some Corto seems to know a thing about it, as surprising this information is rather costly. After all, it is what brought one of Simon's biggest suppliers to heel, leading to the current planetary stalemate. Over the last 5 years, Raubritter Corps have mustered themselves to a decently sized organization, but with a limited expert pilot count. Outside of the original 10 pilots brought over from their Manu work, Luca has been unable to attract experienced mercenaries or pilots to join them. The stigma of Manu, plus the relatively new emergence as a mercenary company, has not particularly made the transition easy to them. The sole reason for Providence is a ruthless approach. Immediately after cutting ties with Raubwerk, they sold internal secrets to rival companies on Samid and a permanent contract as a raid purge force working deep in enemy foray. With the conflict growing staler and LAPD starting to get involved due to his forces potentially invading Samid, Raubritter has begun branching out. Only for half of their active pilots currently missing in action on his, including their leader. Last, they were able to pick up a distress signal from Bianca on his. Desperate, Raubritter Corps has begun more anti-company engagements while trying to mount multiple rescue attempts without losing their remaining forces. The Lancers are outfitted with pragmatic, nightly designed equipment, reclaiming PR gear for Raubwerk's prestigious history for their own take on knighthood based on roaming, thieving knights of medieval Samid. Nelson, Flad, Emperor, and Empire frames not being uncommon to be fielded by them. They're currently led by Luca Kreidekrieger Schreiner, who is missing in action, piloting a Nelson Atlas, and your contact to them is Elizabeth Ellie Velgard, more to her later. The Icelands, which is also currently fully missing in action, consists of Marie Freischütz Ziegler, an Emperor Pegasus pilot, Leopold Speerträger Mutgrund, a Vlad Blackbeard, and Gabriel Bergbrecher Fürstengrund, an Empire Atlas. Lastly, Bianca Starwächter Nesserode, with a Caliban Gorgon that was able to get her the distress signal. Moving on, let's get to Stahlfakt, which will be your starting mercenary company, even if you're not obligated to stay with them. As I said, some more details on key personnel within will be coming later. I won't be going into that now. As the Stahlfakt themselves, no one likes outsiders messing up local business. Thus, Stahlfakt has had a rough start into the Arawen Diaspora. With no previous ties and solely relying on the reputation and contacts, they have managed to establish a hold in the sector regardless. Stahlfakt is a comparably large-scale operation, housing no less than 16 active lancers, but never managing to break further into relevancy. Not for lack of ambition, but more so due to their difficult and conflict-ridden past. Valencia Reingard of Nobilis Vectra, former head of House Reingard, she lost her access to her family fortune and just following the bitter war that broke out in Vectra, having fought to the bitter end alongside multiple members of Stahlfakt to try and reclaim access to a functional Schedule 1 printer. What's left of her armies after years of war founded Stahlfakt alongside her, as once a new rulership was established in Vectra, war criminals such as her made for a good example, less so for public image. Her ruthlessness and calculated non-nonsense attitude shared by her retinue made perfect qualities for a mercenary leader, less so for tea parties and vote again, especially when a plot goes south and an example must be made of a war disillusioned noble. Subsequently, Vectra's rulership removed her from a position she, alongside the company, had been blacklisted until recently, making work impossible in the home sector. Some strangeness surrounds Stahlfakt, like the contact that helped them establish themselves in Arawen, Miss the letter Tatara, an exotic creature of a woman from some far-flung star Xeno of human spawn. Accusations of her having basically infiltrated Stahlfakt and slowly directing Valencia for her own notions have fallen on deaf ears, at least, of the captain, and led to her until then unofficially by most seen as her lover, close right hand and former Admiral Riker Lisetti of Nobilius Vector to fall from grace and being reassigned to be in charge of the 16th Lance instead of the 1st, who is known internally as the Z-Team. Fuck ups, useful enough to not get fired, but not useful enough to get paid well or get the better equipment. The latter has practically replaced Reika since, regardless of her protests and accomplishments, and her investigation regarding Miss Tatara, regarding her interest in the cultists surrounding the black hole of the system, has at least the older members concerned, but with Valencia's backing, this was silenced, and as further punitive punishment, Reyna has been put behind a desk. Ah, fuck. Reika, not Reyna. Lol. Beta name. One way or the other, a few incidents can no longer be overlooked, and as internal conflicts rise, Stahlfakt remains operational and unabiding. Stahlfakt has never cared for much more than their own ever since they left Vectra behind, taking any contract at any dime when opportunity calls. Allegiances are just as quickly broken as made. The original core of the rapidly aging Valencia that founded Stahlfakt, however, used to operate differently, on a need-to-need basis for long-term projects, less profitable, but much more stable. At least in the eyes of Arawen Diaspora's information broker specialized in mercenaries, Corto, Stahlfakt will either break apart or undergo drastic changes sooner than later. The melting pot of the Arawen Diaspora will see to it. As it stands, Stahlfakt is currently led by Valencia Reingard of Nobilis Vectra, or, well, if bad tongues are to be believed, the letter Tatara, who is currently the second in command. The Ace Lens consists of Felicitas, Deluge, Camarilla, Dylan, Tushot, Djokovic, Tom 99 in Counting Westburg, and Marie Quiet Schmidt. The 16th, aka the C Team, will be the lance that you'll be a part of. As such, the operations overseer and coordinator, Riker Admiral Lisetti of Nobilis Vectra, the former second in command, will be dealing with you, as well as her navigation assistant Graham Rimberg and the chief engineer Leah Staufner, seeing to your mostly consistent, hopefully, well-being, will be the chief doctor. Moving on, we've got Mia Kulpa. Entropy is the enemy to the valiant heart. Reflection is the virtue in which we strive. These are only some of the common phrases heard over public comms when Mia Culpa gets involved, iterating the ideals of a holy saint, Bernadette, the noble of House Elsis. Mia Culpa has origins in penal service workers of the house. It was through her devotion that death row convicts were given a chance to serve the house under her patronage in order to gain the house's trust and favor by taking on dangerous forward work under the ideal of acknowledging each fault, fostering a cutthroat attitude of perfectionism amongst its ranks. This ideal at times has been lost, when compassionate leadership had wished to foster has been twisted and changed, taken to the extremes, or completely disregarded. Being patroned by one of the great houses of RS4, had Mia Culpa turned these ideas towards their enemies. It is you that should acknowledge error, not I. While having obligations to the house, Bernadette's idea of Mea Culpa being in service to the people and funded by them through contract work has been just as much warped, turning this rehabilitation program into the mercenary organization known by the same name today. In the everlasting power struggle, and with the holy saints suspected to have been long killed during interpolitical struggles within the house, Mea Culpa has slowly been continuing to warp into a semi-self-righteous group, justifying actions that IC would condemn by ideals they used at the front. Some even going so far to rumor that a criminal's heart could never change, even in the age of enlightenment and UC's successful own rehabilitation systems for criminals. They also seem to be actively at odds with the wolves of Lycos, seeing them as traitors to a regime that sheltered them in the war from which they profited. The lances are usually fueled a rather large variety relying less on elaborate, one-of-a-kind chassis design and instead opting for modularity and expensive systems, leading into the cyber-esoteric with electronic warfare like the Goblin, Gorgon, Iskander, and Sunzi. Currently, Miyakopa is led by Hartmann Virtus Wendler, who is a retired pilot. Their contact, again, more to him later, is Markov Herzig, and their Acelans consist of Gangal Fraternity Stock, who pilots a Goblin, Adelhard Compassion Herrengold, a Sansi, Datrin Kindness Salinger with a Gorgon, and Oswald the Forgiven Mitterschott Iskander. Next up is the Wolves of Lycus. People grow tired of wars and their homes burn, and they have to see firsthand the end of everything they hold close and dear. It is no different for what remains of Lycus, the three-sided war between Eretus, Ariswal, Judea's Vigil having left many disillusioned. What began as a movement of deserting pilots quickly evolved into a shelter from all sides, coming together to exchange stories and find camaraderie, repairing their gear with what could be scavenged. Fed up with the ongoing conflict, having grown close over Batacoms, the wolves of the 7th Battalion turned against the ruling houses when their decision would have seen them bombarded civilian shelters on their own planet just to deal with an unrest. Since then, more than 30 years have passed. The wolves still howl, and short on supplies, money, and means to provide for Lycos, they have turned towards the rest of the sector. Whatever moral high ground they have held has now been underlined with desperation, but the pack remains undivided, albeit undersupplied. Housing deserters from Eretus Aris War of the Houses, the operation mostly focuses on bringing an end to the conflict once and for all, ending up on the paycheck of Judea's Vigil more often than not. Expanding into the neighboring conflict zone of a Great Wargate Rim War of Azelia, they are bearing their fangs into whatever pays their bills, almost exclusively retaining their partiality solely for the home system. The lances mostly consist of Frankenmechs coupled together from battlefields and factions, giving them a vast variety but difficult in maintenance, fielding varied kinds of errors Sagamorpha patterns. It's currently led by the still operating Monas B-52 May, as well as a semi-active contact, more to her later, Yareli Ballerina Shore. The Acelans of the Wolves of Lycus is Khan 65th Idiot Leadville, Angelina Wicked Witch of House Vanderbow, and Curtis 4th Ace Nilride. Moving on and focusing more onto the great Rim War that is plaguing Arawen Diaspora, Series 6 might just be the one, as there are few organizations as infamous as Series 6 within the diaspora, originating from Shiragiku, where they have served for the many warlords as an external force of enforcement. The 6 founding members are as feared as they are opportunistic. Their families, governed by powerful patriarchs, built the pillars of the company, each relevant for their own sector of business, each merciless in hunting down any that wronged them, leaving their iconic calling card of orange lilies behind. When the Azalea system was chosen to become the forepost for the Warpgate connection of the Arawen Diaspora, Shiragiku's powerful warlords immediately saw opportunity, as did Kuroyuri's ruling class. With it came a power struggle, partly instigated, partly inevitable, with the promises of UC inclusion. But Sayuri 6 did not just see opportunity, but seized it, becoming one of the main factors perpetuating and profiting from the ongoing Rim War. They are ruthless, cutthroat, and take protection money, but they're also capable guns for hire with a strict hierarchy and rules, amongst which as that one does not leave a family or their life behind, where subfamilies, married in or however affiliated with Series 6 will find themselves struggling to leave. Her first success, they have been starting to expand into the neighboring three-way war over Jack's remnant tag, leading to M. Corto to believe that it will become difficult to oppose them should they succeed in their ambition without internal struggles slowing down their business. The heads of the Series X, as well as their actual family names, remains to be one of the few well-guarded secrets of the company, as they solely communicate through careers and those that do know. However, executioners or pilots are easily recognizable, following a flower motive when only ever fielding full female lancers. The lancers are outfitted with top-of-the-line, handcrafted mechs and equipment, individualized by house-owned workshops with signed exclusive contracts with them, rarely shipping out products to pack without it being brought up by Series 6 immediately. Morning cloaks, swallowtails, duskwings, and metal marks are not an uncommon sight under the banner. Currently, Series 6 is, believe it or not, led by the unknown 6 family heads of Sayuri. and your contact to them will be Chiche Tsubaki. More to her as well in a bit. The Ace Lands consists of Koshi, Seven-Leaf Clover Hanako, Shira, Grassroots Kanasho, Hana, Tiger Lily Idaru, und Momo, Peach Blossom Sagiso, with their respective Duskwing, Morning Cloak, Swallowtail, Metalmark Max. With that aside, you've got contacts. And first of all, those to the other Lancers and their Mercenaries companies behind them. One such is the already mentioned Raubritter Corps, Elizabeth Eli Veilgard. Elizabeth Veilgard of Raubritter Corps, it is a pleasure to make your acquaintance. Shall we go right into discussions, or is there a personal matter you wish to address first? Is one of Eli's standard greetings. The polite and dutiful right hand of Luca Schreiner, Elizabeth Veilgard, handles most outbound comms that don't require leadership's personal attendance. In absence of her ace-lands and the leader, Eli has temporarily taken charge of RRC and has searched for missing members of her company. Diligent, the short-haired and prim and proper lady has been accused of having a stick up her arse by colleagues in the field, but at least she has a reputation to making plans and staying true to them, taking no interest in interpolitical nonsense and feuds where avoidable. Her previous work at Raubwerk is a sore spot and one of the few ways to make her lose her cool. It's an open secret that she most likely owes the aces of RSC her life, making her search even more personal than the company's survival. Recently, she has even started to call out other companies attempting to make planform the Karkatos System hotter zones of conflict to little to no success. After all, she's got that Manu in her, right? Help could easily come from Raubwerk, but Eli's open refusal has at least given some credence to the company not lapping up corporate carons. When she snaps, she chooses violence, but has an almost infinite amount of patience. Her biometrics are as follows: age 33, 63 chronological, planet of birth Cymede, in the Karkatos, nationality free birth, Karkatos System, gender female, reaffirmed at 16, appearance 164 centimeters, no visible biomods, brown pixie cut, steel blue eyes, netrunner implant, and usually at official gatherings in a black suit wearing a beaked helmet to modern wear, sticking to the company quirk. Moving on, we've got from Jakoba Markov Herzig. Look, you've got two options here. The smart one, which is also the easy one, or the difficult, long, and complicated one that will lead to a lot of trouble. So why don't you choose the perfect solution to your problem? Us, and working with us, mind you. Are you really going to employ the scraps that weren't good enough for penal service of a reformed and recognized even by House Elsus? Not an unusual counteroffer from Herzig for a contract signed originally by the Wolves of Lycos. Originally tried for embezzlement and a failed assassination attempt against those Elsos, Markov Herzig was sentenced for life by indentured servitude to the house. After multiple escape attempts and a second failed murder, he was sentenced to death by combat. Having survived multiple battles in the name of House Elsos, despite subpar equipment, Bernadette pleaded his case in reassignment to Miakopa for 15 years on probation. Now, 8 years into service, the daily doctrines of Miakopa seem to have stuck as his days of plotting revenge are firmly over, taking on an air of superiority over the fact that he was chosen by the Saintess for redemption. Since her presumed death, Markov has been following the words of Hartmann Fendler religiously, who blames the Wolves of Lycus for the death of Bernadette and their delegation during peace negotiations between the houses, which ultimately ended the prince's attempt to have Eritas and RS4 to settle for a white peace. Often said to have an haughty air to him, unwilling to admit fault, and especially vicious against the wolves, Markov can end up being a difficult man to work with if one doesn't play by the teachings of Miakopa or pays enough Karens for him to bow and scrape during negotiations. He has a nervous tick where he runs his hand through his hair and redoes his ponytail. He recites a prayer every day to Bernadette. His biometrics are as following. He's age 52, 52 chronological as well, planet of birth being Cymede in Karkatos. His nationality is Aryan though, and he's an Arawen citizen. Well, a recognized convict. He's male and roughly 152 centimeters tall. His visible biomods include an eye implant and fiber wire weaponry, graying shoulder long hair, usually in a ponytail, how he keeps his head. Hazelnut eyes, peanut cereal tattoos on right shoulder and right wrist, and usually wearing Alsace-colored noble robes with areotypical asymmetrical cape and tassels. Next up, we have Wolves of Lycos, Urareli, Ballerina Shore. I don't care how long it takes. I'm getting them out of there. This contract isn't worth our lives. I'll make it a bloody problem of our employer to having us sold out. This is the last time I'm having you accept anything from a known warlord monarch by the stars, man. I just got dressed for a date. Wait, is this on public? Why can I hear snicker? Oh, what do you mean this is on public? God damn. Hi everyone. Can we just call it true? This girl I'm seeing is really cute. Caught on public comms during a minor battle on Ares Force Base. Drafted into the war front at the mere age of 12, Yareli had spent most of her life being frozen for redeployment and interstellar travel between the Aratus and Ares Force systems. Being a child of war, she never knew her parents, nor did she care for them, having only inherited her father's uniform that she still wears, torn up and definitely full of buttons. She deserted with the help of Kurt's Nilride, who she served in the same battalion with at the age of 19. While surface level bubbly, she quickly stops to serious on a dime depending on the situation, but rather easy to get along with. Unlike many other communication workers from Mercenary Companies, she rarely gets actively deployed as emergency reinforcement to Wolflands under the call sign Ballerina, fielding a long-range sniper setup where her nerves of steel had kept her sane more than once over losing an entire land she had sent out on Mona's behalf. Seen as the Wolf's own little ray of sunshine, their coordinator on top, the entire company treats her like family and a little sister, being the youngest active pilot amongst them despite her high chronological age by comparison. She shares their views of wanting to bring an end to the war and to finally see peace brought to both systems, and if it were up to her, an end to the great houses themselves. It is easy to underestimate Riley, but it is a mistake to do so. She is cutthroat and clear in her demands when involving her family. One of her bad habits is to always carry open arms and refusing to hand them over, even at official gatherings. Falls into a brief paralysis when confronted with Schengen fire shots in proximity, though. Her biometrics are as following. She's aged 24, though 82 chronologically. Her planet of birth is Lycos in Aratus. Her nationality is Lycos, Aratus citizen, though a refugee. Her gender is female, and her appearance is 144 centimeters, likely due to stunted growth. She has heavy war biomodification for close quarters combat and sniper duties, a turquoise sidecard, and aesthetic modifications such as chameleon skin, which was refitted from war modifications. She has visible gunshot scarring, lilac mauve eyes, and often wears casual combat fit due to sudden deployments when necessary. Moving on to Sayuri 6, Chita Tsubaki. I hope the tea has been to your liking. The Six are pleased at your interest in expanding your business into the zone, but worry it appears it may have not been done with the necessary foresight. If it pleases you, please consider the suggestions I prepared while ready for the next performance. Cheated during the contract communication log spam quarter. Few things are known of the secretive handlers of Series 6 as they are chosen to directly serve as voices of the families in carrying out their will and interests on their behalf. As such, Tsubaki is more a title than a given name. Chicha is one such camellia flower, always appearing dignified and unapproachable. Any questions regarding her personal life or the inner workings of S6 fall on deaf ears and are elegantly maneuvered around. After all, any Tsubaki is trained as such from young age and hand selected from candidates stemming from boarding houses for orphans on Shiragiku that belong to Series 6. Chicha is both an entertainer and companion, just as much as she is a retainer and messenger, often attending lengthy evenings where warlords and contractors meet alongside multiple other Tsubaki. Her role, just like theirs, is to represent a house that day and to keep in line with her secrecy. Which house she serves that day changes frequently. While quiet and well informed of rights and peculiarities of Azalian denizenship, she struggles with relations of other systems due to vast cultural differences. Since she represents Yuri's leadership, slights against Chicho while she holds the role and is present in official duty are seen as slights against the Six. Wearing a trained smile, if someone gets dragged off, she may not have even taken personal offense to. Thus is the life of a Tsubaki. It is not their own, but that of the house they represent that day and their interests. She is an excellent dancer, has a horrible singing voice, unlike other Tsubaki though. It's one of her shortcomings. She is excellent at chess, but often loses on purpose for the sake of entertainment of the other, and incredibly guarded about herself. Her biometrics are as following. She is age 19, chronologically 19. Her planet of birth is Shiragiku in the Azalea system. Her nationality is also Shiragiku, however she is considered owned by Sayuri 6. Her gender is female, and she is abnormally large for Sayuri 6. No, well, for Shiragiku standards at 1 meter and 81 centimeters. She has no visible biomods, well, that doesn't mean anything. Her aesthetic modifications are in line with Tsubaki tradition, and she has a Kamaya tattoo sleeve, dark brown eyes, long black hair, often in a knot, and elaborate silk robes with sleeves that trail to the ground and behind her. While not necessarily a mercenary himself, you'll also likely be in touch with the information broker M. Corto you've heard me mention a couple of times already. Everyone's got secrets. Everyone gets something wanting to not get out. We don't have fancy boards here, and someone's gotta keep the people in check. It's a fair game for everyone. Of course, as long as you're discreet. This far from you see. How do you think things are handled? By having a little chin wagging and a tea party? Especially to an outsider like you, information should be more valuable than currents. This is mutually beneficial, and I advise you to consider my offer. You are the first trying to get a hold here. Nor will you be the last. An excerpt from M. Corto's meeting with Valencia Reingard of Nobilis Vectra during their first encounter. M. Corto is a man that could rival the heads of Sayuri 6 when it comes to personal privacy. As a matter of fact, it is heavily speculated by the UC Mercenary Board that M. Corto is more role than an individual, as he would be far too old to still be the same person without breaking universal accord. As no penalizations have been observed, such speculation must have some form of credence, as documentation of an information broker named M. Corto has been appearances the equivalent of around the first Rim Wars within the Arawen Diaspora. Mostly dealing in information and current exchanges from local currencies, he's one of the few people able to smuggle major UC goods into the system without the blink gate through delicate political works and blackmail. Arguably a shifty individual to work with at all, but he pays well for information. He is the first choice to acquire details otherwise difficult to obtain, especially on rival companies. He is also the host of an unofficial bounty board, the Carte de Corto, where individuals place cash pools without further details as bounty on individuals within the mercenary circles, guaranteed by M. Corto. If you land on the Carte de Corto, there are no hard feelings when taken down. It's just business. He operates through multiple safe houses in the systems of Arawen and can get you in touch with the coroners. His biometrics are a little bit slim though. His age is unknown. His planet of birth is unknown, though assumed to be the Arawen Diaspora, and his nationality is most likely free birth, but it is known he has bought citizenship for most major planets in the systems. His gender is unknown, though assumed male, as he never corrects it, and his appearance is, well, he always wears a full, fairly old power suit and a double-barrel shotgun alongside an older age plasma machete. We'll get back to Stahlfakt at a later date, so let's move on to your conflict zone you'll be dealing in. First, as you've chosen to get yourself involved with a Karkatos system, that is 2 conflict zones and 5 contacts you'll be mostly interacting with when it comes to finding work. One such contact, or well, contact is a bit of an overstatement, as it's more a character you might hear every now and then from when listening to void comms out in the nothingness of space, is OSUPA, or OSUPA, the Overseer Unit Project AS. This is an emergency broadcast requesting immediate assistance to station SO1, playing transcript. Is anybody out there? Does anybody even still care? Mrs. Doctor! Transcript was terminated early by Corrupt. This is an emergency broadcast requesting immediate assistance to station SO1. This is just one of many transmissions caught on public frequencies nearing Vosa. Azupa is one of a few remaining entities inhabiting the research base S1 and the one issuing the distress calls. with both the moon Eos and the gas giant Vosa having been placed on a lock by Stymede officials in one of the few moments of mutual agreement, Ozupa has been left to their own devices, managing the Asuan station and seeing to the survival of its inhabitants without resupplies and contact to the outside world. Rare signals sent into the void are usually ignored by the locals, as the station was partnered with a 450096 LAPD station. Azupa is one of many locally run supervision systems developed by Raubberg, but with it having been cut off from the Omninet and subsequently not receiving further update, it is questionable how stable the program still runs, or if any of the station's inhabitants it sends distress calls out for are still alive. Considering I just mentioned the 450096 LAPD station, it was believed until fairly recently to be, well, there's no one alive, considering how much the whole thing has been torn apart. But that turns out to be wrong, as one of the head researchers from it is still somehow kicking. Dr. Johann Faust. While originally believed to have no survivors, the last 2 years of LAPD R&D Station 450096 orbital ruins activity is likely attributed to its head researcher, Dr. Johann Faust. He was leading the project that led to the station's ruin and contact lost to his. He was originally assumed dead, as most workers of the station. Recently, there have been multiple encoded transmissions detected by some medium personnel going from the ruin to the planet, where any contact to the station is usually met with a "I'm busy" or "none of your concern, I'm dealing with a crisis here," let alone the occasional "am I surrounded by idiots" or "why are you wasting my time?" Whether or whether or not the eccentric researcher is still in touch with LAPD at this point in time is unclear, as he has not been mentioned in the broad contract of the manufacturer. Considering that all data and personnel is to be retrieved, he might need picking up, whether he wants it or not, as he has been low on the priority list of mercenaries engaging in the project, and him not being too keen on people at all, is been mostly left to his own devices, and it shows. He refuses to leave the station ruin, amongst other things. He is assumed to be in his mid-50s, though his chronological age is also assumed to be within the mid-50s, but it's hard to determine considering he was believed dead and no one has seen him person to person, really. His planet of birth is known as Malo, which is within the core of UC. His gender is male and his appearance is rather disheveled, with brown hair, dark maroon eyes, fine motion implants, and visible Omninet access implants. He is usually in a lab coat, which at this point in time has become very obvious that it hasn't been washed in weeks, but hey, look, ain't nobody got time for that. Moving on to Stymede itself, we've got General Jean-Francois Jacquard of the Kingdom of Franconia. And if I say you dig more trenches, you ask when, where, and for how long, and on. We are out of shovels, for crying out loud. We have been out of shovels for 5 years. Use what you can find, but you're not running across dead man's land to your death just to find out that the Republic has long fallen back to the mortar lines. General Jacquard during the entrenchment planning. Arguably, Jean-Francois Jacquard had been dealt a horrible hand. Not only was he drafted into the at the time hot war between Franconia and the Republic of Vanitril, he was then deployed to the front lines where he lost half his face and upper torso to a grenade, only to then be deployed on the front lines multiple more times when stitched together. Resources weren't as scarce then as they have been now, leading to a stalemate between the hardened front line when delicate conversations take place between the two nations. With an unknown invasion force stemming from his and the Royal Armée officially unable to make military movements, Franconia has opted to outsource to mercenaries until clearer instructions arrive. Having never been one for diplomacy, Jean-Francois now has to not only deal with both trying to not jeopardize the negotiations between the King of Franconia and the Republic, and dealing with the machine menace, but also whatever mercenaries are willing to act as an extended arm of a war that is nowhere near as cold as it is on paper. Subsequently, Jean-Francois Jacquard appears ever tired and slightly annoyed, as his resting case of bitch face isn't helping dealing with fickle mercenaries that are far too easily slighted, especially since they do not offer any hazard pay, which is up to him. Deep down, he cares for his soldiers, preferring to send mercenaries to war who had a choice in those that have been forced into carrying on a feud that had lasted for generations. But you'll never hear that out of his mouth. He's loyal to the court, to his king and country. And he doesn't leave a barracks without a spare spoon and a thermos. He also seems to never freeze, despite Siamese cold climate. His age is 48, well, chronologically it's 76. His planet of birth is Siamede, and his nationality is the Kingdom of Franconia in Siamede. His gender is male, and his appearance as well. He is kept alive by heavy augmentation and outdated biotech by UC standards. He has a buzz cut blonde, grey eyes of ibex, and a resting bitch face. Unlike most of his unit and standing, usually running around in sleeveless get-up and black combat boots, rank only displayed by a small badge at his waist. On his opposition side is Lieutenant Letizia Bernot of the Republic of Vanitril. The people of Vanitril have a right to a boiled egg in the morning, warmth in their homes, and to make their own bloody choices. But I'm sitting here pushing pencils and waiting while some king can't be asked to get his ass off the throne and actually do something while people are dying out there. Truce? Only an idiot believes that there is a truce. Last bloody lance they sent from RRC torched up our supply line. Letizia Bernot, lamenting like so many other times. The current Republic of Vanitril started as a movement against the city governor and is crackdown against the local seamstress guild. Joined by other, in the eyes of Franconia, less desirable work girls, the movement under the slogan, "For a hard-boiled egg and a safe good night," managed to overthrow the local city council in a 3-day unrest where they kept moving a barricade forward until the majority of the city was on their side. Lieutenant Letizia Bernot was at the time a young seamstress, barely of age, and rather unfamiliar with his actual line of work of seamstresses, outside of sewing holes in old men's socks shut and stitching together pants of old women that can't hold a needle anymore. Unhappy, like many others with the king, they revived the Republic of Vanitril, the last country alliance to be conquered by Damien XV during Siame's unification and wiped out North 5 years earlier. Now, serving as a lieutenant, she's one of the few people educated enough to speak universal English fluently. She's been put in charge as the first contact for non-Samidian influences and actors. She's an idealist at heart and a skeptic of the best of days, a cynicist at the worst. It's clear that she never had a formal military UC levels of education, but she'd be damned if she doesn't try her hardest. She's personally convinced that the truth is just a farce by Franconia in order to sabotage them and then strike suddenly. As such, she was the first to introduce major mercenary strike forces into enemy territory as a loophole in the current agreement. Since the Republic was hit especially badly by the sudden invasion, the Republic representative has grown desperate, and it shows. Despite her age, she still carries her very old plush bunny with her attached to her backpack, and she's vastly in over her head. Her biometrics are as follows. She's 27, chronologically also 27, and her planet of birth is Siamede. Her nationality is technically Franconian, but she denounced that and declared herself a national member of the Republic of Vanitril. Either way, she's from Siamede. Her gender is female, and her appearance is, well, she's always wearing a hat and open, wavy hazelnut hair beneath, with no visible modifications, a battle skirt and flak armor, sky blue eyes, a makeshift badge made out of copper pieces, crudely put together by the other seamstress to show her status, and usually very disheveled and stressed. I mean, woman has no time. She has no time in her life. Moving on to the last actor in this regard, and another potential employer for you, is Ansgar, the Raubwerk representative. If it hasn't been obvious, Raubwerk does not care for what side of his war comes out on top. Are you interested or not? Ansgar. Arguably the best paying faction on Siamede, outside of LAPD, of course. Raubwerk seems to have a personal vendetta against both sides by being one of their main suppliers of weapons. With a stalemate in place, the profits have dipped, and with the Manolans jumping ship, but previously rather in the background operating weapons manufacturers become much more aggressive in their involvement in Siamede's ongoing conflict in order to rescue the firm from inevitable bankruptcy should the war actually come to an end. To them, the invasion from His is a blessing in disguise, interested in harvesting tech from the planet and to steal AIPD blueprints in the process by using it as a fodder to reignite the war. Ansgar is a rather direct representative towards the local mercenaries in this regard. After all, outside of the RRC, it isn't too hard to find someone willing to do their, in the eyes of RRC, dirty work. Ansgar themselves is an entity of many faces, wearing a new one to every meeting, not helping the allegations of being a Black Ops coordinator. While fairly direct, they are a very outspoken and outgoing personality that is happy to also meet off the clock with mercenaries, having gotten rather good experience within the cadre, and is known to be a decent employer with surprisingly vast connections. It's a known fact that she is one of the few inhabitants of his that were off planet when everything went dark. As to her biometrics, they are considered in the early 20s, though it is difficult to chronologically tell and is not information publicly available. Their planet of birth is his, their nationality is his, Karkatos, though, as a whole. Their gender is somewhat fluid, though often preferring she, her, or they, them pronouns, and their appearance, as I mentioned before, vastly differs, but one thing that remains consistent is their height of 168 centimeters. They are heavily body modified, including but not limited to netrunning gear, chameleon skin, and adaptable hair implants, synth skin, and chrysalis systems, making it difficult to determine their actual age outside of someone vaguely in their early 20s. And that's all for today.